What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 171 of Noodle Time. I am your host, Mark Segovia, alongside my co-host, Andrés. What's going on, bud?
Sir, how's it going? Still a little bit angry about last weekend, but man, I know it's been a few days. I've been able to breathe a little bit, but I'm still angry.
Yeah. The background looks good, though.
I'm building it. Like it's not complete, but it's almost there. Like it's taking longer than I've expected, but it's almost there.
Yeah, and
Finally.
I need to do something with mine. I'll get around to it eventually. I know I'll have something done. One day I'm gonna just appear and everything's gonna be different in the back, and you're gonna be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, what happened?
But with that being said, man, I mean, yeah, obviously we're coming off of a tough defeat against LAFC, a 2-0 loss at home. Dynamo left with 9 guys on the pitch, 2 red cards, things that you don't want to see. Just a complete disappointment, obviously something that we dealt with a lot from last season, a lot of disappointment at home. And, things that you just don't want to see. Obviously, we know LAFC is always going to be one of those clubs that are always going to be fighting for titles year in and year out. And MLS, they're competing right now in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They'll be in the Leagues Cup. Obviously, always top echelon in MLS, fighting for Supporter Shield and MLS Cup as well. So, when you got players like Barunga and Son, you expect a tough ordeal and a tough matchup, right? But those 2 guys didn't even end up beating you, You had 2 25-plus yard golazos go in to defeat the Dynamo. Basically, the same play right off a corner kick. Barunga to Son to whoever the midfielder was, which obviously beat Tutina, Estuvier, and was it Tillman who did the first goal? I think it was.
The first goal was Mark Delgado, I believe.
Delgado. Yeah, Delgado. So basically, it was basically the same play, and it worked out both times for those guys. But not a lot to say. A lot of disappointment. Andres, obviously, I want to hear your side of it. Your thoughts on the defeat? Obviously, not the result that we wanted after a good result opening day. But what are your thoughts on the game overall?
For me, it's bittersweet, but honestly, like way more sour than sweet. Because if you watch the game from the first half, from the very beginning, you could tell that Dynamo were bringing it to LAFC as much as they could. And I mean, even players like Linger were just having that type of game where they were able to contribute and try to bring in those opportunities in front of LAFC. And it was a very even game. And it was too fortunate with the situation with the red card, which I'm sure we're going to get into eventually. But honestly, just the way that the game started, how everything unfolded towards the second half and how the game ended, it was such a really bad roller coaster in a way that like all my emotions went like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was left out with obviously we left that game empty-handed, but I was expecting something out of it literally right after we saw that first half, because we were going to this game with the expectation that it was going to be pretty difficult for us to get results out of LAFC. Everybody's saying, and rightfully so, that they're the best team in the league right now. Their squad is like fully stacked. Like Houston came in with a game plan and almost got it done. If everything didn't get out of the hands, and it sucks because we were in the right situation. Ben Olsen understood what they had to do with his team, and it sucked honestly. And I like to elaborate more whenever we get into like conversation with like everything with the goals like the records and all that. But yeah, honestly, like it's really stuff that I was expecting more of Dynamo. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, ever since Ben Olsen has been the coach of the Dynamo, the matchup against LAFC has been pretty fair on even keel. It's become one of those rivalries that we obviously we want to be a part of, because obviously if you're in a rivalry with a team like LAFC, that means that you're doing great things and you're facing each other in important matches, right? And the Dynamo obviously have done a lot of great things against LAFC in recent memory. This is LAFC's first win in Houston since 2019. So think about that. I mean, 2026, 2019, that's 7 years, for the LAFC, a team who has won basically everything since its creation, has a hard time winning here in Houston. So that just goes to show what kind of resilience we have against a club like that, right? And especially at home. So I mean, obviously it's disappointing. Not what we wanted to see. I think that they fared up pretty evenly. The first half before the obviously the Antonio Carlos red card and extra time, but another slow start, honestly, and it just comes to me just it's like what are we doing? I mean, obviously I know we had injuries as far as Ponce being out and stuff like that, but the thing is, like, we went from playing the 3-4-3 to going back to a 4-3-3, right? I mean, and are we gonna go both ways? Depending on the opponent, are we gonna stick to one? I mean, what are we doing? Obviously, because, like, again, a slow first half to start off the game wasn't entertaining at all. Once it being now, obviously this gave Linger an opportunity at the 9. A lot of people thought it was going to be Markinich, but I mean, obviously Linger can be a striker as well. He really didn't get the opportunity to do much. Unfortunately for him, obviously he had to be sub off, at halftime because of the first red card. But I mean, he didn't really do much. Guilherme, he was out there trying to hustling and bustling, but they didn't really do much. Bogusz, one of the guys who we kind of highlighted because obviously LAFC is his former club, and a lot of players like to do great against their former clubs, right? He was kind of canceled out as well. So it was really a tough first half to watch as well, and then obviously when the first red card, Antonio Carlos, came down, and that's what kind of everything started going downhill, and it's a tough situation to see, obviously, especially with about 10 seconds left in the first half, for our captain at that to make such a silly mistake and foul Son in that position, and then, obviously leaving it in the ref's hands, and the ref made the decision that he decided to make and gave him a red card. Whether or not I thought it was weak or not, I mean, yeah, and then obviously pretending on how much time was left in the game at that time for that first half, you maybe gave him off with a yellow, a hard yellow, and then obviously if he does something later on, you can give him that second yellow. But again, when you leave it in the refs' hands, they're the ones in charge of the matches, and they're the ones who make those decisions. And a lot of people will be like, "Hey, you could have gone to the VAR," but again, at the end of the VAR is there to help the ref along. But if the ref has the decision to make the red card and he decides to go straight red, it's on the ref. An unfortunate thing for Antonio Carlos. And then obviously the second red, another thing that, we don't want to see. But aside from that, and we'll talk more in depth about the game, but obviously the atmosphere at Shell, sold out crowd. Obviously we saw a lot of LAFC, a lot of Spurs jerseys out there as well. Some South Korea jerseys out there to see Heung-min Son come into Houston. I think this is the first time he comes into Houston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like, it's honestly like more South Koreans than LAFC fans for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like, if I was like in the same nationality as Heung-min Son, I would definitely go to that game.
Yeah,
yeah,
for
like
sure.
yeah.
For sure. I saw a lot of Spurs kids out there. I saw a lot of jerseys with Son on it. So obviously a lot of LAFC jerseys as well, and then obviously South Korean jerseys. So I mean, it's great to see. But it's kind of one of those things, the curse of the sellout crowd, right? Because it seems like every time we get an actual sellout crowd, the Dynamo seem to falter and never take advantage of the situation of getting the casuals in, and try to keep them. I mean, it seems like every time the stadium gets sold out, something happens, Dynamo lose, whatever, or falter, and it's just like same old Dynamo. And unfortunately for this go round, it kind of bit us again, and obviously, like I said, the game wasn't nothing that we expected. Obviously, the Human Sun fans were happy to see the result that they got. Their player and their captain, obviously, because a lot of them were South Koreans that came to watch them. A lot of from the Asian community as well came over to support Human Sun and LAFC, and they got their money's worth. Human Sun was very active in the match. Obviously, not a goal scorer, but I mean, hey. So I think he got credited for the 2 assists on the goals, if I'm not mistaken.
So for the first goal, the assist, yeah.
The first goal, okay. So 1 assist, so obviously he was involved. But just your thoughts, obviously, when you see the crowd sell out when a big name comes in like that, what are your thoughts on it? And as far as obviously the never ending question of whether or not the Dynamo should pursue a world class player like that to be the face of the franchise, and to bring in and to have that shell Energy Stadium packed all the time like that, and maybe supporting the Dynamo instead of the opposition.
It's nice that obviously we have a crowd that goes to games, but it kind of sucks that the main driver for the casuals is just for the next superstar to come over. And I'm sure the club knows already that if they're able to sign that type of player, they would. But then again, we haven't been in that situation before, aside from signing Héctor Herrera. Like, Héctor Herrera is very popular. Obviously, by the time he was signed, it was like obviously the biggest player that Dynamo have ever signed. But in the caliber of a superstar like Son, wherever they actually a club is able to reach out to one of the biggest leagues in the world to get that type of player, is a significant achievement, not just for that team but also the league as a whole. And for me, side of me just is sad because we're never gonna be in that situation where we're gonna sign the next superstar unless we are able to bring in that type of investment of just dumping a huge chunk of money onto that player's payroll. Because obviously the clubs like LAFC and Miami have their own plans, their own investments, or owners is putting in as much money as possible. And obviously the markets are wildly different, but it sucks because we're gonna keep saying it over and over again. We do have the type of crowd in Houston of soccer fans that are very knowledgeable about the game abroad, and MLS not as appealing for other reasons at that. And it sucks because we want to be in that situation. We want to bring fans back to the stadium. They did it. They did it for the game against Son and against LAFC, but as it tends to be a recurring theme, whenever we have a big crowd, whenever we have a lot of eyes watching the team, they always mess up. And obviously that happened last year against Inter Miami. That happened every single time we have teams that have those type of players that draw huge crowds. And it sucks because the Dynamo play very well, but they keep defeating themselves in this type of situation, like the one against LAFC.
Yeah. Jeff in the chat, what's going on, Jeff? He says you can almost always expect the Dynamo to live down to the expectations of anyone not a Dynamo fan. Plenty of tickets and seats should be available for the next several home games. At least Dynamo fill the stadium, then have a poor performance, and then the seats go empty again. Yeah, I mean it's all about consistency. I mean, we mentioned it in the prior show. Obviously nothing feels better than opening day of a new season, right? You get all your fans in, with high hopes. Obviously the fan base is behind the club again because of all the signings, all the new players, new attitude, new blood, the hype of the preseason going undefeated and things of that nature. Obviously the activations they've been doing around town, going to these meet and greets and meeting the new players and all that good stuff. All that good stuff. You build it up and you build it up and you build it up and you build good faith with the fan base, and then you give them a home win to start off the season, which looks good and all that stuff. And then, you get a big test in LAFC, which we knew, look, we knew LAFC was going to be a big test. Obviously, them demolishing Inter Miami, the defending champions, like the way they did was a big statement win to start off the season. Obviously, they're dominating dominating Real España in the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. So this team is ready to go, right? But I mean, but just to show the performance that they showed, and to kind of just be just thrown to the side, and especially like I said at home, especially coming off a season like we did last season where we had our worst home winning percentage of all time. It's not a good look, and it just kind of brings familiarity of last year to casuals. Obviously we know we're going to have the supporter groups out there. We're going to have the Surge. We're going to have Atayon. We're going to have, Texanian Army. We're going to have the season ticket holders as well and things of that nature. But, but the thing is, when does this stadium go from being, for sure 12,000 to being for sure 18, 19,000, Like that's where we need to get up to as far as, to have a certain type of atmosphere. And like Andres said, and not only expect sellouts when the big stars come in, when Human Sun comes in, or when Messi and Suarez come in, or later on this year. I think we get Minnesota United before the World Cup. So imagine when James Rodriguez and then come in, like that Dylan Whopper derby is going to be something to look forward to this season again. It's going to be a crazy. I'm sure that the Colombian community is going to come out there, and they're not going to come out there for Nelson Quiones. Even though a small little bit of them will be supporting him, but they're the reason they're going to be out there for. And it's one of those things where obviously we'll speak on James Rodriguez. The fact that he signed with a club like Minnesota United. Even if it was for just a 6-month stint, just to get them in shape to go to the World Cup. I mean, how many kits are they going to sell? How many seats? How many season tickets have been bought? How many tickets have been bought to games that wouldn't have been purchased prior, because now you have a World Cup star, a former Madrid player, a former Bayern Munich player, that represent that's big play for the biggest clubs in Europe, all around Europe and things like that. A face. Somebody that people recognize, the face of the franchise. Like I said, he might be there 6 months, or he might like playing for Minnesota United. Might decide to stay for the rest of the year. But you have to shoot your shot, And like I said, like Andres mentioned, we did that with Héctor Herrera a couple of years back, and that's great. But you got to build upon that, man. You can't just stay stagnant just because you did it one time and that's it. You got to build upon that, And shout out to Héctor. I mean, obviously Héctor did a lot when he first came in, but there's a different level from a Héctor Herrera as opposed to a Thomas Mueller, a Human Sun, obviously Messi, and things of that nature. So it's just one of those questions that never seem to not come out when the Dynamo are doing not so good, and then a big club like LAFC with their big shining star comes in, and it's like, oh, Shell Energy Stadium is going to be sold out, but not for the Dynamo. It's sold out because X player is coming, So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, it's just one of those things that I think, as a fan, as a supporter, I think you and me both can agree that, that while we support the club, and obviously it's the club before the player, but at the end of the day, too, we want this club to level up. We want this club to be known, and to bring in a certain type of player, a certain type of talent, So, but with that being said, I mean, is there anything else you want to add to it before we move on, Andres?
No, really, just the game itself. Because
So,
you looked at the way we played, and really,
yeah, I mean, obviously going back to the game itself, let's talk about the red cards, man. Obviously, one red card is not good. 2 red cards is a spell for disaster. So, obviously, I talked about the Antonio Carlos red card on Human Sun a couple of seconds before the end of the first half, and then Bogusz given a straight red to a runaway foul. The player had the clear opportunity to score, and he obviously fouled him intentionally so he wouldn't have that opportunity. So that obviously is a straight red. Your thoughts on that second red card to Chiquis? Fair? I mean, he was unfortunately in that position. Do you think he should have done it, or do you think he should have just let the play go and see what would happen? Bond was bonding.
Yeah, Bond had a pretty good night for sure. Obviously, the two goals didn't help his case, but like, he was able to stop a ton of opportunities, and one of them being a Cheeky Busat taking down the player as being the final defender uh, before Bond had to step in. Obviously, like every single time the defender's gonna take him down no matter what if he's able to, and yeah, that's an automatic red. I saw a lot of comments from Dynamo fans because apparently the player that got away from Cheeky was potentially offsides, and I was watching the game and they didn't have like the angle to fully show that he was offside. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that he was not,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the fans at Water Stadium had a better angle, but yeah, like it's still gonna be a red card regardless. Obviously, if you deny go scoring opportunity, you're gonna get a red card like that. But obviously, it set us back way more, even that late into the game because nine players is just miserable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, had it been an offside, the red card would have been taken away, and he would have stayed in the game, like I said. But obviously, unfortunately, in that position that he was in, he made the decision he made, and he understood that it was going to be a straight red. Obviously, I have no complaints on that one. Obviously, because it wasn't called an offside play. So if it wasn't called an offside play, he did foul him on a potential goal scoring opportunity. So you know it is what it is. Under the rules, it is what it is. It's a red, and he deserves that red. Um, just that second red card looked like a valid.
The now if I go scoring opportunity.
Yeah. So, but like I said, I mean, it's again, you put yourself in that position. You're caught. You're caught you're caught not paying attention, and that's why a team like LAFC, even though, like I said, during that time period, they still. I mean, even though we were down a man, we were still able to kind of move around and stuff like that. Kind of still keep the game kind of even kill. But you get caught sleeping, and a team like LAFC is going to make you pay, and they're going to catch you off guard, and then somebody's going to have a opportunity on you to score, and then the only thing you can do is foul them, and that's how you get sent off. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation because now that's two players that won't be available for our next game, and unfortunately, our next game is not going to be till I believe March 14th against Timbers, but but that's just already two more players that we won't have available on an already short bench that we already have. And then the question is who replaces these players. I like we mentioned prior shows. I think we talked about last week when the Dynamo acquired an international spy from I believe it was New England, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
We're talking about who could they bring on, this and that, and they might need to do something quickly because at the end of the day, our bench is really short, and especially our defense, and we lost our captain, our defensive captain, two of our defensive captains. Obviously the like replacement for Chicas is probably Hector. I'm assuming that Hector's gonna get his first start of the year against Portland. But who replaces Antonio Carlos? If Andrade is not ready yet, obviously we had Agustin Resch, our young Argentine defender, come up. I mean, but do you want to put everything on a rookie?
definitely not, and it kind of just goes back to our previous discussion about the next player signing because we still have 3 weeks until the transfer window ends, and they need to get that center back situation situated as soon as possible because we are 2 games into the season and we are already short-handed. I know it's just for one game because of the red cards, but honestly, this is gonna be the situation. Uh, uh, Even worse, and I hope it's not the case. Injuries, and this is how easy we're gonna be. Like shorthanded, in that type of scenario. So we need
Yeah,
that
I mean,
definitely in the center back position. And Augustine Resch, of course, I'd like to have this opportunity for him, set him up for the first team, but it's too soon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the game being postponed this week against New England because of their weather situation, kind of helping us out because obviously it gives like Jeff says in the chat, it gives another week for Andrade to time to heal. So maybe he can make his debut next game at home against Portland. But we'll see. I mean, it's still something where obviously you're still depending on a player who's barely coming off an injury, and things like that. You're obviously you don't want to, have that player re-aggravate that injury, and then be out further more time. Obviously already going to the game with Arthur out, Ponce being out, and Andrade out. That's three key players that we had going in depending on, and then obviously it doesn't help that we're losing Antonio Carlos and Chiquis, at the same time. So that's potentially five players that could be that would probably be starting, would be five of our starting 11 to start off with. Like those are five starters, and it's hard to replace starters. You're hoping that people are gonna line up and be next man up and be able to take on the toll of losing those players. But obviously nothing has been shown. Like I said, last week once it was out, I didn't really see much from Linger to be in my opinion, and like I said, unfortunately he wasn't given that much time because of the red card and he had to be taken out. But but prior to that, I didn't really see too much from him. Markinich, is he going to be given an opportunity? We'll see. I don't know. As far as like the six goes, obviously Chiquis has been doing a great job, covering Arthur, and obviously McGlynn helping them out on a more defensive side. But now we got to go to Hector. Obviously we'll see what Hector is. We have Hector. I don't even know when the last time Hector Herrera played a full game, to be honest. So and now you're relying on him to realistically play a full game because who's the defending mid that we have after him? Basically nobody. It's like you're really down to the nitty gritty as far as your bench and your availability for players and players who are going to make an impact. And
I'd say aside if there's like a plan for Héctor Herrera if he's not expected to play like a full game, I feel like there's gonna be like a plan with the Diaz Samaseku, or if they're just able to rotate players around at this point because like we do have obviously you mentioned Héctor Herrera, assuming that he starts and going back to the fullback situation because Dwayne Holmes is gonna be covering that wingback position. Obviously, there's still tools, but of course, it's not the best situation here because we have to make a plan B now. And
I think we're down to like plan D right now.
Plan D, E, F.
Yeah.
Upcoming
Yeah.
year,
So
yeah.
it's tough. Like obviously, look, when a club is fully healthy and they have the full squad available, it looks great on paper, right? But then injuries start happening, red cards start happening, and stuff like that. And it's like you see how quickly your depth gets hit, man. And it's crazy. Like LAFC literally had four more players on their bench than the Dynamo had, and it's like we're already shorthanded to start off with, and it's like now we're gonna have to depend on signing Dynamo those players on short loans, to see if they're able to give us a little bit of a boost if needed and stuff like that. Which look for the kids is great. It gives them an opportunity to hopefully maybe debut for the first team, and we'll talk about debuts here in a bit. But but under the wrong circumstances, that's my concern. It's under the wrong circumstances, and then on top of that, where that means that we're getting them involved in games that realistically we're looking at we're losing that game. So and then speaking of debuts, like I said, Hector made his debut. Resch, Agustin Resch, the young Argentine defender, made his debut, and obviously the biggest star of debuts that was made last week. Last week was Arana, our youngest debutee at 15 years old. making a debut, playing a couple of minutes at the end there. Actually had a little bit of an opportunity in the box there, a little bit that kind of brought an uproar to the crowd at the end. So we'll see how he gets involved in next week's match day plans and stuff like that. And if Ben Olsen does decide to give the young 15-year-old some more minutes or whatnot, we'll see what happens in that situation. But your thoughts on the debutees, mainly Arana and Resch.
Obviously, for Matthew, I feel like it was a little bit unfair that he was like given that opportunity way too late to have an impact. But honestly, I'm really happy for Matthew that he was able to go out there and debut, which is fantastic. I hope that he gets more minutes with the first team, not just coming in the last 5 minutes of the game to see if he can pull off a miracle. But yeah, it's great to see. I'll see Agustin Resch in that situation where he had to come in as an additional center back to sacrifice Linger.
It's a big
Also,
kid.
yeah, he is a big kid. I'll see a lot of pressure in that situation because you're down to 10 men there, and you have to like hold the fort in your debut. Obviously not the best situation to be in, but congratulations to him as well, and of course welcome back, Hector. We miss you for sure, but now you have to show out like once more because we are in a bit of a pickle here, getting to our next game against Portland.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like, shout out to those kids, making their debuts and stuff like that. And sometimes the unfortunate thing is like when you make a debut, is because the game is so out of reach that hey, here's a couple of minutes to some garbage time minutes, or sometimes hey, they're dominating the game so heavily that that here we got some time for you to come in, that where we don't think you can lose us the game. So, but unfortunately, ours is the latter. Ours is the latter, and it's obviously, I don't know. Like I said, it's gonna be great for these kids to push, especially in training right now, knowing that that Chiquis and Antonio Carlos are unavailable. Arthur's unavailable. Andrade, like I said, he's day to day. Ponce, I'm not really too sure what the extent of his injury is. If it's just a muscle injury where it's just maybe he was just out that one game, he'll be available in
Yeah,
time for the next
and
game.
also Franco Negri, he missed
Oh,
that. Like,
Franco Nigri as
yeah,
well. Another guy who obviously he's the defensive player who obviously our defensive line has been sliced real thin, thinner than a sliced ham. So it's
it's
just
okay.
yeah. So it's tough, man. It's tough to be in this situation, but just I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I mentioned in the last show, I mean, there's still a lot of free agent players out there with MLS experience. Obviously, the overseas market's always available for the Dynamo if they want to go that route. But is there anybody, you're more familiar with Dynados than I am? Is there anybody in Dynados we might be able to see come up and maybe help? I mean, obviously, I know that they signed a couple of Brazilians to help out in Dynados as well. Can any one of those Brazilian kids come up and maybe pull in Andrade?
There's always the opportunity throughout the season, but I feel like the most, or I like to say like the most realistic one might just be a second Wakutuya coming in as a emergency center back. Um, and honestly, like you obviously mentioned the players that were missing in the last game that depending on the situation could also miss next week. But obviously having the week off might help. But yeah, like it's just a situation where we find ourselves at the, like, honestly, like I'm always in favor of having opportunities for those, but at the same token, like it kind of sucks that we're still at the mercy of those to save us, like in like way very early into the season, and because obviously without that type of experience to get us into favorable results and favorable like situations, it really, you put a lot of pressure onto onto the youngsters, and it's just concerning at times. And I do hope that once again whenever that opportunity presents itself to them, they're able to take advantage of it. But obviously, it's a little bit of a a tense situation whenever you have to put them on the spotlight like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously as a young competitor, a young kid coming up, if I'm given the opportunity, I'm grabbing that bull by the horns and I'm trying to do everything to keep that opportunity, right? And that's the way these young players should look at it, and and hopefully somebody does. Like I said, last year, Felipe Andrade came out of nowhere. Realistically, right? We knew that he was a young player that we looked into, whatever this is and that. But like, did I expect him to rise the way he did as quickly as possible, like he did? No, but I mean, but he took full opportunity of his opportunity and did what he did. On the chat, Jeff goes, thoughts on Borges' performance so far? Are you speaking overall between the two games, or are you just talking about the last game against LAFC, Jeff? But yeah, that's interesting as well to talk about. Obviously, Borges being our biggest acquisition this offseason. Obviously the first game, he had a lot of. He was in the box a lot, had a couple shots here and there, but nothing too crazy. Obviously, overshadowed with a Guillermo's brace to open up the season, and then this game against against his former club in LAFC. Obviously, unfortunately with the red cards and stuff like that, had to play a little bit out of position and then be taken off. But I guess, hey, what your thoughts on Borges as so far? I guess in these two games that he's played under the Dynamo kit.
Honestly, like for me, I'm officially concerned with Mati. Like only because at this point, like we should have been able to see. No, really, not necessarily like goals right away. Obviously, goals would be nice, but really, just finding that consistency to open up inside the box or like
Mhm.
break through and find those opportunities like to get the shots on goal. And he was able to get those here and there, but not as consistent as I've been hoping for. And he was sold to Dynamo fan base as the difference maker. He's a DP for a reason. Obviously, like he was like given a ton of or like resources for the club to come over and be the difference maker for us. And as of now, like things don't look as convincing as they should have been. Obviously,
Yeah.
we still have a ton of season ahead to prove that. But as of right now, I'm I'm officially concerned for that reason because like he has to be our creator and the evolution of the Amin Basi we've been used to see on the field, and like it's concerning for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's our second highest ever transfer player to come in, right? So with that already on top of it, on top of the thing, and obviously he's our most sought after acquisition this offseason. So with that being said, you're expecting something from him automatically, especially from a player who already has experience in this league, and is it tough to put that much pressure on him? Yeah, it is. But I mean, but when a club is paying what they paid for you, expectations are needed to be met, and the thing is like that's what I'm saying, like that's the difference between, having a player from Borges' uh cloth compared to somebody like Evander or a Martino Hera from Orlando City, or a Banunga from LAFC. Players
Buanga,
who
yeah.
players who are DP players. They might not be the world class players like the Messi's and Sons that we mentioned earlier, but nonetheless, they're DP players who make differences on their clubs and their leaders. Scoring goals and assisting and making plays and getting the defenders off of other players so other players can do their thing. And that's what we need from Borges. And like I said, look, 2 games in, obviously, the second game wasn't what we all expected, so I can't really hound the kid too badly, but not the start that I expected. We got some people in the chat. We got on Adrian. I can't thing went away from me. I want to make sure that I get all you guys opportunity on here when
Yeah,
I
we
see
got
y'all.
Pat Fran, Adrian Rodriguez, of course, Jeff still holding it down over there, but well, we got a lot of people chatting.
Yeah, just my thing went my thing froze for some reason. I
Yeah, so
can't.
for Adrian, I do have it with me right here, but I can read it while I want to check it
Yeah,
out. Yeah, it is mentioned no other league in the world refunds or compensates tickets for players' absences in games and blatantly protects advertised stars the way MLS does. The blatant favoritism discredits the league.
What is he referring to? Like when star players miss games, or what? I'm
I'm
not
I'm
sure. Not sure
I'm,
what he's
I'm
referring.
assuming that is Adrian's referring to a situation kind of like what happened in Vancouver whenever they were hosting Inter Miami. Basically, Vancouver started promoting the game as if Messi was going to play. I believe in the week of the game, Miami City was not going to play. Even though Vancouver like made promotional material around Messi. Yeah, I feel like that's one of the ways, and I think they're in a court case even, and they might settle for that
Hmm.
reason because it's basically false advertising,
Yeah,
and I'm just trying to take advantage of the situation because obviously Messi's here and everybody's playing in big stadiums and everybody wants to see Messi.
yeah. See, obviously that's the unfortunate part of things, right? Where like obviously we had the same situation where we thought Messi was going to come play to Houston. He ended up not choosing to play because of for whatever reason, right? But the thing is, as how do I say, as a league, right? It's wrong for the league or for the opposing team to market the fact that a big star like that might is coming, because you never know what's going to happen, right? It just goes back to saying, like I said, we mentioned the talk earlier about the stadium being full, because not so much because of the Dynamo, because of Human Sun coming in, right? Had Human Sun been out, I mean, that would have been a big, ah man, this and that. But I mean, but again, it's marketed Dynamo versus LAFC. Now, obviously, when you put some of the players on the poster or whatever, is Human Sun one of those marketed players? Yeah, for sure. And obviously he tends to be available when he's fit. But I mean, obviously, if he gets injured or something happens, out of the hands of the league or the club, you have to protect the club's interest in that player, obviously. And if that player can't go, you can't go. You know, is it unfortunate that sometimes that people had to pay 150% above market value because that one player that you wanted to see being the best player of all time coming into your stadium, and you never watched him play, and this is your only chance to watch him play? Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. It's like the same thing with the NBA and load management. Like the NBA doesn't market the fact that, let's say, the Rockets are gonna play the New York Knicks, and then the one time that the Knicks come into Toyota Center, you're ready to see Jalen Brunson, and Brunson doesn't play, and it's like, oh well, I mean, we didn't say Brunson was going to play. We said the Knicks are going to play. So it's just one of those things where the league needs to get a little bit better on that aspect, and not. I guess obviously this being Messi's third season with the league now, it's calmed down. But obviously the tickets when Messi goes into any city, they skyrocket. But I mean, but I would think that by now cities and clubs around the league would promote Inter Miami as a club overall instead of promoting Messi coming into town. Because if they're not, then obviously, yeah, I can see where it could fall under false advertisement, like Andres mentioned with the whole Vancouver thing and all that stuff. But we'll see. Pat says, I wonder when an MLS club will hire Wilfred Nancy. Ben Olsen must have a guaranteed contract, or maybe Nancy wants to stay in Europe. He must still be getting paid by Celtic. Let's hire him. Look, man, Wilfred Nancy is a great coach, one of the greatest coaches in MLS. Obviously won a championship with Columbus Crew. Didn't go well for him in Scotland with Celtic, but I mean, obviously he knows the league and he knows it well. Look, if we're 2 games in, a lot of new players. Is it time? Is it time to be ringing the fire Ben Olsen flag? Is it time to be waving that flag? Yeah, I think it's premature. So I mean, obviously, when you have a name like that out there ready to be hired, it's one of those things where, like, as a club, you're like, oh man, if we had that coach knows how to coach and blah blah blah. And this, yeah, look, I think it would be
It's
an
not
up.
as easy. Yeah.
Do I think it would be an upgrade for sure? But I mean, but again, it's one of those things where like, hey, we have an investment in this club. We have uh, they've invested in Ben Olsen, and Ben Olsen has been good to us for 2 out of the 3 years that he's been here. So they're giving him the opportunity to carry on and move on, and hopefully lead this team up into greener pastures. So we'll see. And Adrian says right, but because they have to make sure these marketing players stay fit, it's easy to see how how calls can be made in their favor on the pitch. Like these things are cutting off for me. I don't know what's wrong with my chat thing.
I
Oh,
like the red corner game.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's man, it's the superstar call, right? Like you're guarding LeBron James and you accidentally tap his elbow and he gets a foul called, and you go on the other side and you get knocked down by 3 players and you don't get nothing called. I mean, it's it's the superstar call. It happens in all games, every league and stuff like that. And Heung-min Son is one of the biggest stars of this game. Now obviously we've seen the pictures of how he looked afterwards with the back of his ankle all bloodied up. So I mean, obviously he got hit somehow. So I mean, because he had a lot of blood coming out from the back of his heel. So like I said, do I think it should have been a direct red for Carlos, especially with the amount of time left on the first half? No, I would have gave him a stern yellow, and then obviously I would have been like, hey, look, I'm giving you a yellow, but you're on thin ice, buddy. Like in the second half, you better watch what you're doing, because the next I'm ready to give you a quick yellow, second yellow. But like I said, the ref has the decision to make whatever decision they make, and he decided to go straight red, and we gotta live with that decision. You know, Antonio Carlos, especially as captain, cannot put himself in that position with that much time left. He should have known, hey, I got to give this guy space. This guy, and the secondly, didn't even have the ball on him, and then he did hit him late. So, Andres,
especially the team full of captains. Like we have a ton of experience and
exactly.
veterans that definitely know way better. Of course, things happen as we are humans, but it's not a good showing, especially now that we in the second week of the league we lead the entire league in red cards.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that we kept hearing the whole offseason, man. We got a team full of captains, and veteran players who know how to win and know how to win games and things like that. And unfortunately, this game was not the game to be promoting a team full of captains, because obviously 2 of our guys, like I said, one unfortunate, one fortunate, I guess. They got the Reds, man, and it's an unfortunate thing. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of team is starting on the I think it's the 14th against Portland Timbers, and then obviously it'll be a third straight home game. We don't want to start losing points at home, and that's not a recipe for success, especially like I said, a lot of hype going into this season because of the new signings and everything. You don't want to lose the grace that you've been given, that quickly. So, I don't know. Obviously, the New England game has been rescheduled due to weather. It's still to be determined when the Dynamo will travel to New England to play that game. But obviously, no match against our old friend. Why am I forgetting this kid's name?
Brooklyn Reigns.
There we go. No Brooklyn Reigns reunion this upcoming weekend. So we get to relax over the weekend. Obviously no game to be played this weekend, unfortunately. So we get to kind of relax and just let everything kind of soothe over after the bad taste left over by LAFC. Is there anything else that you want to mention, Andres, before we carry on?
Man, yeah, just disappointed still. Like I know we're beating on the drum the entire time, but like it just sucks because like we have the players that were definitely capable the first half against LAFC, but once again they keep putting themselves in these awkward situations where it's insanely difficult to get back to. But also we talked about how the red cards could the first red card could be argued, second red card maybe like if it was offside or not, but that's a different discussion. But like I feel like the point I was trying to make is just those type of calls are just gonna be there as part of the game as always because the referee is human and they're gonna see the game as they see it.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is, unfortunately. But it sucks. We have to move on. The team has to learn better. There's still plenty of season ahead of us, and man, like
Let me ask you. Let me ask you
yeah.
this: if for whatever reason Ponce isn't ready to go against Timber, are you going with Linger over Markinich again?
Honestly, I think Linger should be the first choice in this situation because, like I said, I feel like Linger had a pretty good showing in the first half very early, and it kind of sucks that he had to be sacrificed for just bringing Agustin Resch in. But I feel like he's gonna be that, and honestly, having Markanic available, it's a good choice as well, and I hope he gets minutes too. But I'll linger for now.
Yeah, and the reason I asked is because obviously we know the kind of type of preseason Markinich had, him scoring goals from all over the place, and just hey, look, the kid did it. I mean, look, he has the record for most goals in the USL history, which got him moved to Spain and Catalonia, who are actually in first place in Liga Two, so they're actually going to get promoted here to Liga One, La Liga One. But obviously it didn't work out for him too much over there. He came over here. Whatever time he was given during the preseason, he was scoring goals, and a lot of people are shouting for him to get some opportunities. So that's the only reason I ask. Obviously, Linger's a player who Ben Olsen and the front office have a lot of faith in. That they brought in last year as a DP. And who would want to see him. Obviously get on the score sheet and be more productive offensively and be able to showcase what kind of skills he has and the reason why they brought him over last year and things like that. So, but that's why I asked. So you're for Linger over Markinich.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. So, but again, like I said, if Ponce isn't available and Linger doesn't showcase what he can do, then obviously you gotta keep going next man up, and who knows, maybe the kid is given an opportunity and he just takes the bull. He takes the bull by the horns and he runs off with it. But I do expect Ponce to be back by that time. So who knows? We'll see. Andres, unless there's anything else that we have talked to, I know it's a short show than we're normally used to. Obviously, we would be talking about this week's game and predictions, but obviously, like I mentioned, we have no game, so no predictions available. So I guess just let everybody know where they can find us.
Definitely, of course, dynamicfoxtrot.com, the new hub for everything regarding Foxtrot Media and everything that we do. If you haven't checked it out already, we are updating our Fox in the Box blog. It's a brand new space whenever we're putting in all of our blog pieces related to Dynamo Dash, anything else, any content essentially. Also, is another way of watching or listening to our podcast episodes. If you go to the podcast app, you're gonna be able to listen to the podcast on any device. Just leave it on the background, and you should be able to listen seamlessly. And of course, as always, we do have all of our video content available on Foxtrot TV, our YouTube channel that you're watching right now live. And as always, we do appreciate the support of everybody coming in tonight. Pat Fan, Adrian Rodriguez, Jeff Strong. Thank you guys so much for engaging with in the comments tonight, and also everybody has been able to tune in live as well, not just on YouTube but also on X. We appreciate you guys as always. Make sure you are subscribed and liking our episodes, all of our content on YouTube and our podcast platforms, whatever you get Noodle Time. We do appreciate it every single time. And man, just getting ready because, of course, we do have the Dash starting in a couple weeks, which is going to be insane. And of course, those just kicked off the season with a huge dub against Colorado Rapids 2 last weekend. And man, yeah, just fantastic to see. Of course, Felipe Andrade did play for the first half for those, which is significant. So that's some very good news. Looks like it could be on track to come back for the Portland game. Hopefully that's the case. And yeah, just watch those as well, because all of our games are going to be on YouTube. No more Apple TV, by the way. So just keep an eye on that. I believe they do have a game this weekend, and I forgot the game though. But yeah, I go watch those.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the ladies in the Dash and starting their season off. Shout out to OSG. Check out the Dash Dispatch with OSG if you don't get it. If you haven't had an opportunity, my guy has a lot of information in the Dash overall and everything that's going on with the women of Houston. So check him out. Shout out to you, OSG, wherever you're at. Probably taking a nap or so.
Adding miles to the miles tracker.
Yeah, to keep track of the miles tracker as well. My guy puts in the miles. But with that being said, man, obviously, like I said, I'll reiterate what Andres says. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys on the chat for keeping it, live and popping and being involved with us. I'll mention again, guys, once we get to 400 subscribers, I am collecting Legends autos. So every time, like, I'm out there, whether it be the tailgate or autograph alley or whatever, I'm hunting these guys down for you guys.
Yep.
I'm
getting the tailgate for the first game.
I'm throwing Pokeballs at them, collecting these autographs as quickly as I possibly can. Because once we get to 400 subscribers, all those autograph legend cards that I get will be given away in a giveaway. Okay. So I just want you to know that. And that's not the only giveaway we're doing. We're going to be doing some other things as well. But that's one of the major things that I will be giving away myself personally once we get to 400 subscribers on YouTube. So the faster, the better for us, and then we can move on to the next milestone that we can get to. But with that being said, guys, again, thank you for the opportunity to talk Dynamo with you guys. Thank you for supporting us and all that good stuff. And obviously, like I said, no Dynamo this weekend, but let's regardless if they play or not, we're always holding it down for H-Town. Go Dynamo, go Dash, Dynados, all those guys. Let's hold it down.
Always. Stay noodle, y'all.
Stay noodle.